I decided to give Back to 15 a watch because it sounded like the kind of thing that I would really like. I do actually love films and TV shows where a character goes back into their own past, and that's exactly the premise we have here. And I have to say, the first episode was really interesting. It was a bit too dramatic. To make a long story short, it focuses on this girl called Anita, or this woman called Anita, who kind of makes a bit of a fool of herself. Her adult life is not quite where she wanted it to be. She's not necessarily happy with her lot in life. And one thing leads to another. I won't spoil anything too much about this first episode, but she remembers a photo blog that she used to have online when she was younger. She goes online to see if it still exists, and the next thing we know, she's back to being her 15-year-old self. And the whys and the hows are not apparently clear yet. I assume this will become clear as the series goes on. It could be one of those things where there's no real explanation and you have to suspend disbelief. Maybe it's one of those things where mentally she's having a bit of a breakdown and has a blackout and transforms herself back to her 15-year-old self as a coping mechanism. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too deeply into it. But either way, we get to see her going back in time and being her 15-year-old self again. And so far, there's not really anything specific that has happened to make it interesting. But her character, her personality, Anita's self, is really interesting. Because she thinks she's dreaming in this first episode, she's got an increased sense of self-confidence. And that allows her to face up to people who did her wrong when she was younger. It allows her to take risks, by which I mean she gets her ears pierced, and do things that she maybe was either afraid to do when she was younger or wasn't really comfortable doing. And it's a really interesting look at what you would do differently if you could look back on your own past. It's kind of like, what would you tell your younger self if you had the chance to meet your younger self? And that is something that I think could work quite well as the series progresses, when we see the child, the 15-year-old, getting into different kinds of situations, and the older, more mature adult Anita being able to kind of stop and tell herself that actually this isn't as important as you think it is, or this drama isn't really that necessary. The real world is a much bigger picture than your 15-year-old life. Because let's face it, all of us have gone through all kinds of ridiculous teenage dramas that in the big picture are really just ridiculous and not that important. Of course, a lot of us have also gone through quite traumatic teenage years, and if that is the case with Anita, as we learn more about her, it will be a good chance for her older brain to coax her younger self into maybe looking at things in a different way. And that's something that I think could be quite interesting. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do feel like I might continue watching it. I thought the first episode was very well done. What's particularly interesting about this is that it's ideal for my age, because when she goes back in time to being 15, the technology is the technology I grew up with. Photo blogs and Bebo and Facebook, not so much Facebook, but MySpace. They were really just coming into their own. So this is definitely, I feel, aimed at my kind of age range. I'm 30 years old. I feel like that's kind of the target audience for this. Or certainly in terms of being relatable. This is also a Portuguese language film, but the dubbing is absolutely fine. I didn't at any point find that I was watching the lips of the actors and hearing something out of sync. I think it flows really well. Maisa Silva is Anita, and is the 15-year-old Anita, and I think she's pretty brilliant. I really found her performance very engaging. The character might, kind of the only thing that I can think of, I feel like the character might become a little bit too cocky with this kind of heightened self-importance, because she's in her own dream world as far as she currently believes, so she can speak to people and bullies and stand up for herself, but there is a chance that she'll become a bit too big for her boots. Because let's face it, if we all had a chance to go into our past but we thought it was like a dream, we would kind of take that opportunity to be like, well, this is my dream, we're going to play by my rules. And we do get a glimpse of that. So it could go one way, but so far I think she's pretty likeable. Back to 15 is one that I thought could have worked really well, and watching it, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. Who knows if it'll stay like that if I continue watching it. I'd love to know what you think of the first episode, and also if you watched the first episode and decided to continue with it. But personally, I think I'm going to stick with it.